All right, let's jump into lesson number 8. This is where we're going to be talking about vulnerability management. Remember when I was saying that cybersecurity is split up into different type of sectors where you can either be a cybersecurity analyst, engineer, DLP specialist. Vulnerability management falls in one of those categories of, it has its own sector, it has its own lane, and this is where we're going to be helping the company um, recognize the vulnerabilities that they face, and then how can we actually um, put things in place in order to help them alleviate or mitigate those issues, those vulnerabilities. So let's go ahead and let's jump into it. First thing we're going to talk about is the device and the OS vulnerabilities. Um, Normally, when you're talking about vulnerability management, you're going to be talking about some type of uh, PC, mobile device, tablet, whatever is hooked up to the internet is going to, really need some type of patchwork done to it. And so understanding that these things are talking to the internet, but they also are needing updates from time to time is very important. And so we just want to make sure that we understand the severity of those vulnerabilities. Some may be small, some may be 0 days. And I'll go through 0 days in just a second. But those that are small should be routinal. And that'll be, really updating those PCs once a month and making sure that we see a rise in vulnerabilities. But then when we apply those patches, we see the numbers in those vulnerabilities go down, right? And then kind of level off and then to rise up as we get to the end of the month, going into that second week of the new month. So for you didn't, for those who don't know that when it comes to Windows products, Microsoft always will have kind of like the second Tuesday of each month will be their patch Tuesday. And that means that they'll push out all the patches that are necessary for the vulnerabilities that they found out the prior month, right? And so we would always kind of understand that on that second Monday that we need to prep for Patch Tuesday, which we would do a lot of resets. Maybe we even have the change management to go through and actually have a reset during that off hours so we can go ahead and bring servers back up. We can reset everybody's computer that's inside the building. We, make sure that it restart and, we clear those patches because once you apply those patches, sometimes they will not take effect until they actually get a restart. Um, Now, I mentioned 0 days. 0 days are vulnerabilities that happen on the dime or just at that moment, and they don't have any kind of patches written for them. And so that's a big problem when you're talking about um, everything that is associated with this vulnerability now has no fix to it until that provider can provide a patch for it. In some cases, some 0 days happen for those out of date OSs that we talked about, where they don't have any type of update coming because we don't support that piece of software anymore. So now that 0 day is just a permanent vulnerability that we always got to deal with. So you want to keep those things in mind when dealing with the severity of vulnerabilities. Now, there's different types of vulnerabilities, of course. Um, Here on this slide, we're going to talk about the legacy systems where a lot of times with legacy end of life, that's just basically we're holding on to software and hardware too long, and we're not really setting ourselves up to actually move the system or the process to the new latest and greatest. So we get kind of stuck in our ways of just staying on the same system, and then you get lost as far as maybe that company goes out of business, maybe they move on to a whole nother version that we don't want to pay for. Whatever the case may be, you get these legacy systems out there and you get these end of life systems that are just out of date and there's no helping them, right? Firmware vulnerabilities. So a firmware is going to be closely to your chipset, and this is the system before your OS actually populates. So when you hit that power button and you kind of see that black and white writing that comes across the screen, and then it kind of like has this 80s feel to it, and it loads up. That's normally your firmware going through its chipsets checks and making sure that the keyboard is uh, working, make sure the screen is working, make sure the fan is working, going through all its checks. It goes through it fairly quickly, but it goes through it, right? Now, sometimes that piece of the system needs to be updated. And normally Windows and Apple will let you know that, hey, we need to go ahead and update this. And you shouldn't unplug your computer when we're running this actual update. And so a lot of times you'll see that with that. And then also if you go into your local router, you'll be able to see the same thing if it needs a firmware update. And so whenever you see a firmware update, you pretty much want to, take time out and let's go ahead and address those issues because those can be overlooked, and then they're probably going to be more severe as far as what they can let a hacker do versus a patch that you didn't necessarily patch for the month of June. Okay, so just keep those things in mind. Virtualization vulnerabilities. So remember when I gave you guys the VirtualBox address, and if you have installed VirtualBox with another OS on there, remember that new OS that you put onto your computer is like a brand new computer. So it needs to have the patches ran on that as well as the one that's hosting that particular OS or that particular virtual machine. So you have to treat that as two different machines versus one, right? You just can't update your personal one thinking that it's going to update VirtualBox. Okay, that's two different systems, two different applications that need to be addressed. So also obviously is with the application as well, making sure that your applications are up to date. I showed you that a couple of times with Google Chrome, going up there and looking into the about section and making sure that it updates on its own. And that's the same thing that goes for any other application that you work with. And a lot of times you'll see the end of life and the legacy systems apply to those versus the actual hardware, a piece of server that's actually out of date. You'll see it more with the application that's out of date and no one's even you can't even really contact the manufacturer for it. It's just out of date. We already touched on 0 days, but I'll go a little bit further into it. It's just like I said, these are vulnerabilities that are found in the wild, right? They are found by normal people, and then um, they are they go to the manufacturer and let them know that hey, this is out there. And when they let the manufacturer know, or let's just say you found it out in your company and you go to the manufacturer's website to see if there's a fix for it, and there is none, then it's the first day or the 0 day, the actual doomsday or whatever you want to call it. It's the first iteration of it. And so we have to wait until there's an actual fix for it. Normally, when it comes to 0 days, if you got a well-known company that's really trying to keep their reputation going, they're going to probably have a patch out by the end of the day, if not the next day. And even if they don't have to, if it's on an inopportune time, let's say during the holidays or something like that, they'll probably get somebody, they'll probably get a team in to actually give you a workaround to mitigate that vulnerability. But the patch for that 0 day won't be too far after that. Okay. So I've witnessed a couple of 0 days, but it's 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 a little nerve-wracking at first because of who if people don't understand it, they may think that, oh, we're getting hacked actively, like right now. And no, that's not always the case. You have to look at other factors in your network to see if you actually have um, someone in there moving around, moving stuff around and stuff like that, where you have different boxes that you need to check to actually see if there's a hacker actively into your network. But a 0 day does let you know that, hey, you have a gaping hole when it comes to a vulnerability that you need to take care of immediately. Vulnerabilities also may come in misconfiguration. So when you're setting things up, if you are not using the proper protocols. Maybe you're using weak passwords, things of that nature. When you're configuring these systems, these applications, you may be setting them up wrong or just in an insecure manner. And therefore, while it's set up, it's vulnerable. It's actually easy to, get past those levels that you have. So you remember when we had the big outage during class where I was trying to show you my home personal router. I was trying to, get over to the fact of saying, hey, there's a default username and password on a router in your house. This is how they give you these things. And that default configuration could be known by anybody that's familiar with that product or has worked for that company before. And so when you have these default configurations, um, it is a vulnerability for the people who are in the know that may run across your type of equipment and have the ability to go ahead and take advantage of those things. Now, on top of the default configurations, you also have cryptographic um, configurations that could be vulnerable too. And this is simply coming down to using an algorithm or some type of cryptography that's just weak. Um, it doesn't really have a robust system or a robust algorithm to it in order to create enough of a encryption in order to withstand any type of brute force attack that comes against it. So we want to make sure that we are using the proper protocols, the proper encryptions when it comes to networking configuration. So if we're using HTTP, then that's a weak protocol. That's a weak encryption that we are using when it comes to web browsing. We need to use HTTPS in order to get that secure factor that we have that we will want in our system. Now, side loading, rooting, and then jailbreaking. This is more on the mobile and tablet side, the mobile phone and tablet side. This is where we're bypassing the default settings and going into the kernel of the actual phone, and then changing settings on it that are usually not meant for you to actually change. And so when you're able to do that, then you're opening the access to anybody being able to put anything on your computer or on your phone, really. When you think about that, then it's more for the Android users versus the Apple users because it's harder to get things into the Apple Play Store the Apple Store versus Google Play. Um, if you download the wrong thing from Google Play, then it could give more access to that particular user if you have rooted your phone or you jailbroke the phone in order to gain access to it to do whatever that you wanted to do with it. But it could give more access than what you are bargaining to do. So just be mindful of that when faced with, hey, I want to jailbreak a phone or a device. It may give more access to, putting things on a computer or a device that you're bargaining for. Okay. Applications and cloud vulnerabilities. Let's jump into that. So we're talking about web application attacks, things that can happen on a web browser or in a web application. Cross-site scripting is where we can create a different site, but at the same time put scripts within the site um, that allow for certain commands to be ran. And so it may mirror a particular site, like the ones that I showed you, and I'll show it again in our next class. But I'll show it shows kind of like a phishing site, so it's a mirror one for one site. But when you click on certain um, features within that fake site, it may have some scripts that's hidden in that particular web browser that run in the background on your PC. And so that's why it's so important to look for the cues on these fake sites to make sure that you're not on a place that's, doesn't have a certificate, not using HTTPS, looks weird. Maybe the URL is not written correctly. If you see these cues, then it's not only is it important to not put information into it, it's also important not to really click on anything because they could be running something in the background. Okay. Same thing when it comes to SQL injection. So this is where a hacker can do some research and be able to understand that there's a SQL database, or they're going to take a wild guess that it's a SQL database, collecting all the username and passwords from the username and password section of a web browser, and they're going to put a SQL, they're going to inject some type of SQL command in those fields to try to get some information back, due to the fact that with the, hopefully with the commands and the way that it was set up, that it was set up in a misconfigured way or a defaulted way in order to spill some information back. Okay, so we want to be aware of that when it comes to creating our SQL databases, making sure your database team is doing things properly and securely, to avoid these type of attacks that may happen. All right, cloud-based application attacks. So these attacks could be just targeted to a particular application on a cloud platform, um, and you need to be able to understand in your threat fees if these applications are pertaining to your security applications or the application stacks that you have for your company, right? In order to understand that, like I said, have your feeds or understanding where you're going for real live information. It'll be important to understand that, and then once you see those applications that may fall in your realm, then you take the precautions that you need to take in order to keep the business safe. One of those precautions could be a security broker, or a CASB, right? So a cloud asset security broker sits in between the user, the device user, and then the cloud provider. So that cloud provider could be anything, right? Um, I'm going to use box.com as the cloud provider, and it's sitting between you. So that CASB is sit on your computer, and whenever you drag a file from your computer up to box.com, that CASB will scan it to make sure that there's nothing sensitive going out. Or if it is, then it makes sure that it checks this list to make sure that it's proper to actually leave. Um, Security brokers, I haven't seen too many places with a robust system of a CASB already set up and running. The places that I've been are looking to get further into that, but they haven't really have a mature model of it just yet. Supply chain. So a supply chain could be a vulnerability that's waiting to happen, right? We talked about the ransomware attack that shut down the whole east coast of America, where they couldn't really get any kind of gas anywhere, right? So that's a supply chain type of vulnerability. If you're doing something, and that process in the business is relying on one supplier, one particular supplier, then guess what? Like we said before, this is um, a single point of failure. If that supplier goes down or is attacked themselves, while nothing happened to you and your company, it does reduce your supply of whatever you're getting from them. And so now we have to either find a alternate, or we just have to be without until they're able to get back up and running. And then you need to think about what information do they have of you and your company that for them to be hacked or data leaked or whatever the case may be, what do they get from you in order and let that slip out the back door? So those things you need to keep those things in mind when it comes to your supply chain. You more than likely you want more than one, but the caveat to that is that you need to understand how much of a budget you have, and then what can we actually do with it. So this is where the planning goes on at. When you're planning for recovery or continuity within the business or recovery when it comes to disaster, these things come into play, and you need to, be open-minded with the type of supplies that you get, and then run that stuff up the chain to make sure that everybody is okay with it. They sign off on it and be able to have it in their back pocket for whenever, a problem does arise. All right, identifying the vulnerabilities. How do we actually figure out that we have vulnerabilities on our PCs and on our servers? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be done with scanning. So there's two big players in the scanning market that I know of, and that'll be Rapid7 and Nessus, or I'm sorry, there's another one, and that's Qualys. And we'll take a look at those um, tomorrow. But those three are going to be able to have systems that sit on our network in different spots and be able to scan the network and see different workstations and servers that are connected to um, our actual network. And then on top of that, they can see what patches that they have received and what applications they have. Now, they can make changes of pushing different patches there, um, but it takes more. I thought it takes more of a authenticating piece to do that. So a lot of times you'll see people who are working with the Windows servers push patches out via Intune or WSUS, which is WSUS, and it's it's kind of is it varies from shop to shop or from business to business on how they actually want to go about doing it. But um, to finish up on this slide, you can actually get one of these tools and be able to basically tell what PC needs these things. And based off of the scans that you run, you could tell if things are severe or not, right? Based off the scoring. And we'll go off the scoring later. Um, like I already named, Nessus is a free vulnerability scanner. Now you have to set it up in a virtual box, but or some type of server, but it is free for those that are willing to go about actually trying to download it and then install it. Uh, OpenVAS is more on the web browser and vulnerability uh, domain. So they're going to look at those web browsers, I mean websites, and then have a list that they compare them to see exactly what is vulnerable and then what is not. Threat feeds. Now, I already kind of said that, you should have some type of threat feeds going on. And a lot of times I see these coming from the actual cybersecurity companies, such as Symantec or Broadcom. Um, Rapid7 would have some. You could get them. It's pretty much anybody who's offering a security tool probably has some type of RSS feed that they're probably, giving updates on what's out there in the wild, what to look for, things of that nature. Um, I honestly think that the best place to go to for up to date, real up to date feeds is Twitter or X, or however you wanna call it. But it's a community of cybersecurity analysts and engineers out there that's already just sharing information. I think the first time that I've heard of not know before, but Log4j is something that we had, I think, like last year around this time. Log4j, I found it out on Twitter, versus any RSS feed that I got going to my inbox. And so, while it's not professional, but it is on time in real time, and that's where the people are at. So, sometimes that's where it kind of it rules what's going on. Now, some good places that you can go and see some threat feeds are listed here. IBM, the FireEye website is pretty good. Recorded Future, I've seen and worked with them a couple of years ago. Proofpoint is always a good leader when it comes to email security. So all of these places have their hands into what's going on today in the real world, and what type of threats that we are actually facing today. Now let's talk about the dark web, the deep and the dark web. So the dark web is where um, these are sites that are on the internet that are not registered, and you have to have different ways of getting to the dark web. So this is normally where illegal activity is going on because of it. The way you get to the dark web is um, it has so much of an anomaly of how to actually take your IP address and switch from different networks to different routers. Um, with all that switching, it actually creates a security to it to where you really become almost invisible to anybody monitoring you on a regular basis. So, um, for a personal note, I never been to the dark web. I don't have a need to go to the dark web. And in my position, I don't need to go there. Even as a SOC analyst, I don't think that you would need to go and check that place out. It can get, from what I've seen, it gets real dark quick over there. And if you're not really built to try to one, try to put the Tor router on your computer and then try to navigate your way there, I don't think it's any place to really kind of go. So um, just know that, in order to get there, it's not just as simple as opening up a web browser in incognito mode and then going there. So just keep those things in mind. Now on the other way, the kind of like on the other spectrum of vulnerability assessments, is you got places like that will hire you to be a vulnerability management, right? But then you have other places where they want you to do an assessment, and this is where pen testing comes into play. And pen testing has a user come in and be able to run tests against different phases of the network, processes in the network, everything that's in your business. They're able to run some type of process against it to see if there's some type of weakness to it. And on this slide, it goes a lot deeper than just what this slide says. But normally you set up some rule sets on what a pen tester can actually do in your environment, because potentially they have you're letting a hacker come into your network and not only see the vulnerability, attack on the vulnerability if said so. And so this could really just bring down the company that day. I remember my first pen test that I ever witnessed and tried to defend against. Uh, he ended up taking down our whole system that day, and we had to tell him to stop, within the first 2 hours of saying, hey, all right, just chill out, roll everything back. And then, we proceeded forward after we set the rules and boundaries in. But here on this slide, you got a black box testing. This is where I know nothing about the network. I'm pretty much starting from outside of the building, and they're telling me, hey, all right, try your best to get into our servers, or just to, find out what you can about our business, and then try to work your way in that way, right? Then you have white box texting, and this is where I know everything about it. I'm understanding, that you got different servers. I may even know the different OSs that you have on those servers. So I have a great deal of information about what's happening. And then there's gray box testing, where I know a little bit of something. Maybe I even have a little bit of access to particular places. And this is, a lot of times you might see gray box testing because you want to get the information from that you get from a black box testing. Uh, but you don't want to go through the trouble of him or her taking down the whole network. And so we will say, hey, come into the building. We'll give you a guest password, username and password. Work from there, right? And stay within these boundaries. That's gray box. But to really find out truly what vulnerabilities you have from a hacker standpoint, you need to have some type of black box testing, to just say, hey, this is my company's name, go for it. And whatever comes out of that comes out of that. But it could get ugly. And so um a lot of times you want to have testing environments for those particular situations. Bug bounties are something that you all can do if you have a feel for pen testing, um, being able to hack and do that ethically. Then you can look at bug bounties as being something that you can get some good experience on, and make some money on the side, when if you're able to look at the codes and be able to decipher those things. Now, I've said before that I don't know how to code, and I said to you guys that you don't need to know how to code, but I would say this is the exception, right? If you're gonna do bug bounties, if you're gonna do pen testing, then I think understanding Python is probably gonna be a good learning point of coding, and understanding what to do and what not to do, and then how to manipulate that code to make it do what you want it to do. Now that's where I would say the exception is at. But just because you don't know how to pen test doesn't mean that you can't be in vulnerability management. So just wanted to get that out there. All right. So vulnerability analysis and remediation. So let's jump into it. We're talking about the scores that you see. So when you run these scans will come back with a score of each vulnerability that they find. And then normally the higher the score, of course, the more critical that it is. Does that mean that you actually change that at that point in time? You see a critical? Maybe not. Maybe not. It's according to what it is. It's according to what PC is on. It's according to who owns that PC, right? If this is the CEO and he has a critical vulnerability that needs to get patched, let's see if he's in town. Let's see if we can get him another PC. Let's see. Let's test out all our options before we just run up there and say, "Hey, get off. We need a doggone computer," and start running patches and restarting. That's a good way to get yelled at. So all the patches, just because it's a low, doesn't necessarily mean that you ignore it. Everything is taken into consideration, and then based off of how your company holds processes, it'll basically dictate on how you actually mitigate these vulnerabilities. But on the test, you're going to see common vulnerability scoring systems, that CVSS. That's what it's going to stand for. And whenever you see that CVSS, just know and commit to memory that chart that you see over to the right, where nine being a critical vulnerability, and then everything in the middle um, being kind of like medium to high, and then anything lower than a three will be considered low. Now, sometimes you get these scans back and they may give you a false positive. And a false positive means that we got something, but we're not too sure if this applies to you, or if it's actually a vulnerability. And a lot of times you'll get a lot of false positives. And what I end up happening is that you'll put exceptions in for these false positives to not alert on these type of things because it could be while the system thinks that this is something you should be worried about, you can put critical thought to it and say, you know what, I don't need to be alerted on this particular thing. Let me go ahead and put an exception in for this false positive and not be alerted on this particular thing. Now, on the flip side of that, you have false negatives. False negatives are vulnerabilities that should be alerted to your attention and are not. That's a problem, and that's more on the tool not being able to be configured right to understand what is a critical process or a critical uh, vulnerability. And so, if you have false negatives, then you need to, make sure that we look into it and set that alert up that every time you see this, I want to be notified immediately because the last thing you want is that a false negative goes by and you treat it like, whatever. It didn't alert, so therefore, is everything is good. Not always the case. So you want to make sure that you run over when you're running your scans, you're looking at your logs to make sure that everything is proper. Prioritization. So just like how I just said in the last slide, um, based off of the score and then false negatives and false positives, we're going to prioritize, what is critical, um, and then how we're going to go about actually solving those issues. And having a classification is important when it comes to, the the description here, the low, medium, high, critical. Yeah, that's important, but the exposure factor is also important too. How many people is it actually getting to? Um, is this something that'll get out of hand very quick? Excuse me for a second. Is this something that can get out of hand very quick, or is this something that's just for 6, 7 people that we can knock out within a day? What are the impacts? Is it if somebody gets compromised? Is it something that can we get out of hand real quick? Is it something that if it's compromised, it stops the critical function of our business? These impacts plays a major part on how you actually react. So therefore, going back to this chart here, that impact on a medium might be so high to where, hey, now this is a critical. Because even though it's a medium, it might our impact I'm sorry, where is that? Our impact and our exposure factor are very high. So therefore, you know what? We need to take care of this yesterday. You get what I'm saying? And so just keep those things in mind. Risk tolerance. Um, how much risk are you willing to take when it comes to um, reading those vulnerabilities and that assessment? Are you willing to sometimes they call it risk tolerance, sometimes it's risk appetite, where is, do you have the capacity to actually withstand a vulnerability? And that's in turn saying, do you have the appetite to withstand an attack on this particular vulnerability? So if you knew about something and then you didn't do anything about it, that's, accepting the risk. And then you have the tolerance to actually take whatever's coming with it and be able to keep the business moving without any type of repercussions. So response and remediation. So sometimes, most of the times, it's going to be remediated via patching, but sometimes we can have a cybersecurity assurance. So something, let's just say you were hacked, right? Data leak. Um, we can essentially move that off to a insurance policy holder, and the things that we have taken damage on, maybe we can recoup some of that money based off of the insurance policy that we had. Segmentation is also great. So those 0 days that we had, if we can't really do anything about it, segmentation to the network will always kind of alleviate the fact that, anything in a legacy system, end of life, 0 day, I could segment that device off, and then at least I don't have to worry about anyone getting to it. Now nobody can't really do anything with it as far as working, but that's just what we have to do right now when it comes to 0 days and end of life, right? Compensating controls. Do we put things in place to offset what we have going on? And then we got exceptions and exemptions, like I said before, when it comes to those false positives, putting those things in place, making sure that um, maybe they don't we don't want any debugging type of logs to alert us anymore. Maybe someone needs uh this particular software, so we have to accept now the vulnerability that comes with that application. So now we put that into an exemption. Okay, so validation, after you fix your patches or after you patch your machines, you want to rescan. And those rescans is going to let you know if you fixed the issue, you addressed it, mitigated, whatever the case may be. It'll let you know if you have taken the right steps. And so we always want to rescan. And then more importantly, is that after we rescan and we have those reports come out, we always want to show our higher ups what are we doing? Did we take care of the issue? Um, and this in turns let them know, okay, these are the actions that we're taking to keep us safe, because there's a great way of job security, because you are constantly showing the CEO or whoever you're reporting to that we are vulnerable. We're taking vulnerabilities every day, but we're also taking actions against those vulnerabilities, making us safe, mitigating those vulnerabilities on a day-to-day basis. And you can see that here in this report, and it happens monthly, so it's always something to look at, always something to report on, and that's always a great thing. So like I said, to summarize, vulnerability management is one of those areas that I would definitely tell you guys to get into if you want to kind of go a different route than being an analyst or engineer. Is one of those fields in cybersecurity that is not talked about a lot, but it's such a critical piece for the companies that do have it. So always, we'll talk about it more, like I said, tomorrow. But always just keep this in the back of your mind when it comes to looking for those jobs. And yeah. So we'll go over the hands-on piece tomorrow in the beginning of the class, and then we'll take any questions on that. All right. And did you guys have a chance to take a look at that, or are you going to look at it sometime this weekend?
Sometime this weekend. Being transparent.
Weekend.
I rewatch all of your classes on B2 on the weekend. So because I'm in class as we speak, like I'm currently in class as well. Oh, I'm on Zoom on this phone, and then I'm with you. So I rewatch everything on the weekend. So
See, that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't want to just pull y'all away, because everybody's got something going on, and I don't. Anyway, the videos will be there. If the questions come up, we probably need to do like a big recap or something like that. On a Monday or something like that. So whenever y'all do watch the videos, y'all can have those questions fresh. But so I guess my question of, is there any questions about lesson 8, probably goes out of the window. If I just go ahead and say this, what about vulnerability management do you guys have questions about? Is it something that you heard about, or you just have more questions about? I brought it up a couple of times in class, but any questions on it? Take silence.
Not at the moment.
No.
Not
Okay.
at the moment.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's jump into lesson 9. Lesson 9, evaluating the network security capabilities. This is where we're going to be talking about a lot of We already put our network appliances into the network, but how do we configure them to be secure? And what are the some of the processes that we're going to use to have a secure network? And this is where we start off with baselines. So having a secure baseline, a standard, so to say, is key. Where you already have your product that you want to bring into the company, but now you want to configure it to where um, it's doing the task safely. So we can have a router in, we can have a switch in, but if we have left the default passwords on them, then they're not so secure in that manner. While they may be doing what they are made to do efficiently, they may not be secure in that manner. So not just about changing passwords. It could be monitoring, like I got highlighted here. The encryption algorithms that we use can sometimes be weak, and we don't want to use those things. But sometimes they set those configurations up to make sure that they catch every client that they may have. You got to understand that while going to a hospital may be a lot secure than going to a industrial plant, because they're going to be up to date with computers and laptops and desktops, where the industrial center, their whole main goal is just to make whatever product that they're making, or um, maybe stack whatever product that they have out for physical labor. And so we got to understand that while it may be the standard to have a strong encryption, maybe a SHA-1, a SHA-2, that they may need to use a what we call an encryption called WEP, at the lower, not a lower place, but more of a place that doesn't, it has old technology, and it needs older technology to in order for it to speak. And so having that secure baseline will allow you to look at every aspect of what you got secure appliance wise, and then say, hey, okay, we're going to apply these processes and rules to it in order to make sure that we're secure as possible while using these products. So some things that we want to look at when it comes to configurations, not just on computers, I mean switches and routers, but it could be computers, phones, things of that nature too. You hear me say all the time, we want to change the default credentials. I'm pretty much sure, I'm pretty sure that that's going to show up on this CompTIA Security Plus. That if it's a default credential, let's go ahead and change it. If they give you the opportunity to change it, do change it, and then change it to something that you can remember, or let's use that password manager that we've been talking about in order to change those default credentials. Disable any unnecessary service. So this is going into the switches and routers stage. So on your switch, you will have 24 ports, and they kind of look like telephone ports, right? Telephone cord ports that you can just, it has that little weird shape to it. All of those are defaulted to be active. So if you plug something into it, it should give you connectivity. Matter of fact, if you look at your modem that's at your house, you turn it around to the back, it should have that telephone looking RJ45 port. Those things are hot automatically out of the box. It would be in your best interest to go into the configurations and disable those ports. But a lot of times you may, it's a 50-50 chance. I would say that they might be on, they might not be on. And that's typically off of someone actually disabling that feature and turning them off. But we want to turn them off and turn them on whenever we need them. We want to make sure that we use secure management protocols. So this is SSH, SSH, or IPsec when it comes to communicating uh, via remote desktop or through the internet via VPN. We want to use access control lists. So ACLs, I haven't really touched on it too much, but ACLs is a list of who's invited to use this service, right? And that's how you want to look at every ACL, no matter if it's network or if it's system based. So they can be two different types of ACLs. You can see one that's on your computer where we allow um, these applications to be on your computer. That's an allow ACL list. And you also have a ACL list that's on a network where we are allowing these IPs to connect to our network and actually communicate. If you have these lists, then it's easier to understand who can get in versus letting everybody in and then you kicking out people who don't need to be there, right? So having these lists is critical in order to one kind of get a grasp on your network and know who's in it, and then versus you know, just letting it be the wild wild west and letting everybody roam around. Again, if I have any kind of network issues, you guys please just stop me, and I'll try to work on that. We having storms in South Carolina right now. Along with the configurations, we also want to talk about strong passwords, like I always say, port security, and then last thing that they got here is the physical secure of the equipment. So making sure they're behind locked doors. One thing that I haven't brung up is that if you have laptops that necessarily don't need to go home, but they need to stay on a desk, then we want to make sure that we have those locking cables that can hook up to a laptop and you can wrap it around a desk leg or something like that to keep it within the building. Just having this physical secure, uh, having things physically secured will give you an extra layer of defense versus someone actually routing into something and actually taking control of it. Just a side note here is that it's very it takes a very skilled individual to actually uh, log into a computer from their house and then log into your computer from your house that's on totally different networks in a totally different state and not be found out and then take information from there. That's an incredible skilled person. And then so with that being said, it doesn't happen often. And in order to really do it, you probably need some kind of cheat codes in there. So I need some type of agent that's on your computer or something aiding me that's going to help me out in order to get that information. So it's much easier if I just take the item, or if I can just take the whole switch, take the whole router, and bring it back to the house, plug it up, and then use something to brute force it right then and there, versus me trying to get from my house past my router into the internet. I mean, the service provider's router to your router to your PC. It's just a lot of it's a lot of work, and it's just easier if I just take it. So just keep those things in mind. Is it can be overlooked sometimes when it comes to the physical, but let's not overlook it.
So that's a possibility. You can do that. You can you could take control of someone else's desktop through means of wherever you are and your technology.
If so, okay, then why not, right?
I've heard
I'm
of it.
technically connected to you right now,
That
right?
is correct, sir. Okay. Okay.
And so how can I do it through just code, like just running commands? No, it's things that's put into your operating system that will not allow me to take control of your PC right now. But I do know that there's a way that I can get from South Carolina and you're in Alabama.
Correct.
I can get to those. I can link us up that way, right? So now I just have to think about, okay, if I can't if I can't just naturally get to your computer, what can I do to put on your computer to give me permissions to talk? And
Mhm.
that's where I was saying you need something to aid you or to give you a little bit more leverage. Can I put an agent on your computer somehow? That's where I go back to my social engineering and I say, hey, why don't you, for training purposes, install this piece of software on your PC so you can learn how to work into an EDR, and I'm trying to sway you into that. If you install that, then now it allows me to jump so many hurdles that I had to jump, and I got great connection to your computer that way. That's cheating, but at the same time, just trying to think about all the hurdles that you would try to get to just to figure out what's your computer name so I can try to get to it from my house. I might as well just take the other route. You get what I'm saying?
I do get what you're saying. I thought it was rumors, but I overheard someone tell me once before that there's such and such. It was a significant other that had access to their phones through their phone. It was remarkable, but technology is magical.
We all talk, like, when I showed the example of the Wireshark, all of those entries are just, it's just our machines talking back and forth, really. And even if it's just saying, hey, I'm here, hey, I'm here, that's all it's saying. That's all one computer could be saying. That's just letting the other computers know that if I do need to talk to Ryan's computer, then I know that he done shouted out 10 times that he's here. All right, now I need something from you. Here's this document. That's how computers really kind of talk in the background. So just real quick, and so I'm gonna pull up you see all of these applications that I got running. Y'all can see this, right? Yeah. So
Yes, I
all of
see.
these applications, these are running in the background. Um, but they're all talking to something, to someone, and it doesn't have to be directly on my computer or in my house. It could be, I'm not going to say to you guys, but I would say Zoom is probably still talking to you guys. It should be at the top if I do memory. Well, it's in Chrome, so yeah. Chrome is where I launch Zoom so I can do my desktop share. But this is why it's taking up so much memory on mine, because I'm connected to you all. And I would imagine something similar for you guys as well. As you can see, Microsoft eats up a lot of memory too. And I'm really not doing anything with Teams. I don't even know why I got it on here. But um, basically, what I'm saying is that in the background, while we may be talking to each other over the voice over IP protocol, this is going on in the background, and it's constant. It doesn't matter if I'm doing something or if I'm just kind of, you know, if I'm sending some files. If I was uploading a file to the cloud, all of this would be going crazy, and we probably wouldn't be able to talk over Zoom. But to go from here and make this point, then I'll take it back. To go from this stage, application stage, to get to that same point on your computer is I would say it would be remarkable if I could just go through the command line. That'd be awesome, but it won't let you do that just because we're on different networks. So I have to jump over that hurdle doing something else. Good question though. Any other question? So default credentials, we want to make sure that we enable logging and monitoring. So this is where we're going into having a SOC. So if y'all remember from the first day of class, I talked about working in a SOC, Security Operations Center. This is what they really kind of dwell in. They are threat hunters by nature or by career. And so what they do is they look at the logs that come in on different appliances, and your computer has logs too. So everything that we're doing is logged down into some type of event book. And whether it's you got your password wrong to get into the system, or you open up a web browser, or you open up control panel and then you close it down, All of these things are being logged into that logbook. And the reason why you want that is that if someone hacks into your system, you want to be able to see when did they get access and then what did they do when they were in your system. So to look at yours, event manager, I'm not too sure where it is in the Apple sense, where the logs are, but I know in the Windows settings, it'll be in what we call the event viewer. And this is where everything is um, logged down. So right here in the security section, it should show, I might be taxing it. It should show how many times that, I logged into the computer. Yep. So all of this blank space should be having some information there, and I should see a bunch of keys up here in this white spot. There it is. I was about to say. So it logs down all this information. And when you're working in a SOC and you come up against an incident, you may have to dig through all of these files just to understand what happened and in what time. Okay. So um, to know if someone's been in your PC or in your appliances is fairly, you should be able to understand that if you look through the logs. Um, if not, if those logs are gone or a section of it is gone, that's a good indicator that someone has already been in there and then erased their footsteps by taking the logs with them. So just keep those things in mind and understand that if you see a job title working in a SOC, SOC, that this is where you're going to probably be living at is in those logs. And that's just my computer. So you can imagine something like a network router having millions of logs on a daily basis. Um, Going into other configurations and setup when it comes to the network, let's talk about the wireless access points. So, quick question: do you guys understand how Wi-Fi works when it comes to walls and appliances such as microwaves and things of that nature? Like it degrades the signal. Are y'all familiar with that?
Earlier we talked about how microwaves can disrupt things like memory and swipe things from last class, and honestly, that's my understanding of application of everything. The microwave simply disrupt the
Okay.
signal.
All right. Well, in this case, it does the same thing without it being in the microwave. Um, it's just microwaves take so much energy just to turn on. Um, the Wi-Fi signal is like a radio signal. Now, I know I'm old and I grew up when we listened to the radio and we had antennas that we had to point it to the radio tower and we get a better signal. The Wi-Fi works the same way. And so if you think about it, if well, I hate to ask, but have y'all ever had a radio with an antenna on it that you had to?
I
All right.
did. I did.
Okay. Okay.
Even like the satellites, the little TVs through the antenna. I had that too.
Okay. All right. So maneuvering the antenna can get you a better or a clearer picture or a clearer sound of the station. Same thing when it comes to the wireless network or your Wi-Fi is that if you can get a better signal or a line of sight to that modem, you should have a better strength signal to your devices. So when you think about it, if you have your router tucked away under a cupboard or on the floor somewhere, around a closed room, it's probably not getting the best reception that it can get. You want to have your router or your modem that comes from that your telephone company in the middle, preferably in the middle of the house, away from any walls or anything like that to get a better broad coverage. And having it around appliances also disrupts that same airwave channel. And so we want to keep those things away from that in order to have better speeds. So we're not creating our own DOS attacks on our own, DOS attacks on our own self. So, um, but I know it could be hard if you already have your Wi-Fi signal, Wi-Fi modem already set up by the company, and they're not going to tell you that. They're just going to set it up wherever your telephone coax cable comes into the house at. And so if you can have them move it, I would prefer you move it to a spot that's nice and open, and you should get a better um, connection each and every time. And so that's Wi-Fi wireless access point placement. The same thing for in a job where, especially like in you'll see a great case of this in a hospital. Uh, Up and down their hallways, they have wireless access points in the middle of the hallways because each one of those uh, rows or floors of a hospital is concrete um, stone, and so the signal can't really go from floor to floor. So you need to have access points up and down those hallways, and then you really have to have so many in that hallway because there could be concrete walls in between each room. And so, in order to have a good signal in a hospital, they have to have a lot of access points, and you want them in certain spots so everyone in the building can have access to it, but you don't want them so much to the edges that someone can just sit in the parking lot and get access to the network. So we want to cut that off in some kind of way. So to give a better example of that, if you guys see here, and I'm not going to do anything to my router, all right? You look here in the lower right hand corner, you see all of these networks here, and these are all my neighbors, and these three are mine. All of these networks, I can potentially take something like is in Kali Linux. There's a application called AirCrack, and be able to get into their Wi-Fi network, and then now I should be able to see whatever's on that network. So to go back to your question, Ryan, if I'm willing to go all the way to Alabama and then take my laptop and go outside your house and then get onto your home Wi-Fi, I should be able to connect from my PC to your PC that way. But from South Carolina all the way to Alabama, it might be a bit of a stretch, but I'm not going to rule it out and say it's not.
Yeah,
Um,
especially you could cheat, right?
yeah, I believe you have to. That's it. Just to think about, if you want to keep it fair, then yeah, you wouldn't need so many security tools out here. But if we're gonna, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying type thing, then I'm going to do whatever I can, especially if you got the information on your computer that I want. I'm going to find out, okay, at least I can find out what cloud provider you use so I can try to get into your system that way. You know what I'm getting? You get what I'm saying? So it's just different ways that you can go about it instead of just thinking about it so straight up and down.
Oh
Okay, I
yeah,
got it.
I got the social engineering aspect of it. That's smart, honestly.
Got you. Um, okay. So that's Wi-Fi access point. So you want to make sure that it's put up in a nice, decent spot, get a nice connection, but at the same time, you don't want that to bleed over into the parking lot if it's possible. Um, Sometimes you might have to bite the bullet on it, and it may bleed out into the parking lot, but that's where we want other things to be set up, such as passwords to be strong, encryption to be strong. Maybe we put up a welcome site or a kind of like an open portal to where you know how you go and you log into the Wi-Fi at a hotel and they send you to an open portal where they ask you to go ahead and accept the policies. You want to put those type of things up. Site surveys and heat maps. So those heat maps and surveys will help you understand where's the good connection at and bad connection. Remember, if it's around a congested area, such as a lot of walls or concrete, and then appliances around kitchens and ovens and stuff like that, it's probably going to be a bad degraded signal. We kind of touched on this a little bit in the earlier slides where I talked about having a bad or weak encryption. Typically, we want to run a WPA or a WPA2. You see nowadays where they say the latest and greatest is the WPA3. And this is encryption that you set up in your router on your modem, right? We didn't get to see this on mine because um, it jacked up my system. So I don't want to, I'm too cautious to show you again. But if you see it over here on the right hand side, um, this piece where you see 5 gigahertz, I'm sorry, you can see it up here where it says version at. That's WPA2 pre-shared key. So that's basically saying that we want to run a username and password. So that's pretty much having that type of encryption on that type of authentication that we're trying to get onto the network. WEP and then WPS are weaker encryptions, but they are some cases for it. So WPS, a lot of times, and I don't know how many of you got experiences with printers. You can pick up a printer and it has a button on there that has WPS written on it. And so if you look at your modem, the modern ones have WPS on it as well, and you can hit both of those buttons around the same time, maybe within 10 seconds of each other, and they'll communicate over the Wi-Fi to each other and make that connection versus you having to go through the system and actually add a printer onto that actual computer or on that router. All right, NAC. So network access control. This is where in the enterprise section, you're going to see NAC a lot used in the real world. And it's a way to put in security to uh, so many different devices getting onto the network. We used to just have a guest network set up for people to, visit the campus or visit the building, the business. But that can end up with being someone jumping from the guest network on to the private network, and we don't want that. So in order to alleviate that, we put in things such as network access control, where it's going to authenticate the device based off of who the user is. So if you're logged into, if that device has been authenticated to you, or better yet, if it has been authorized to you, so they gave it to you and written down your information that, hey, PC1 belongs to Lee. Then once you log in with it with your username and password on the Windows network, it checks the database to make sure that you are who you say you are, and then it will let you onto the private network. And so anything that's not authorized or checked in with that database doesn't get access. So it's a very good way to keep things off of the network. It's a good way to make sure you know what type of vendors coming into your network and be able to authorize if they have the right, because maybe you don't want them to have an old PC on your network. um, you can put requirements on NAC in order for it to do kind of like a check, and it goes through its checklist similar to an ACL, right? It checks that list to make sure that you have the the latest and greatest antivirus. The OS is up to date. You don't need any patches, and maybe you're not pending a reboot. And then if you all authenticate with your username and password, it lets you in. So this is where NAT comes in. It is a great way to keep things at bay when it comes to getting onto your network. All right, so I already talked about access control lists, and I remember it could be a networking thing, and it could be an application thing. So the most famous one that is known for, well, I wouldn't say it's most famous, but it's kind of equal when it comes to applications and firewall. But when you're thinking about a firewall, it's more, that's how I really only just said that's all a firewall does, is that it sits at the edge of your network and it checks a list of who's allowed and who's not. And if you're not on the list, you're denied, explicitly denied. So I'm gonna say that again. If you're not on the list, you're explicitly denied. Those will be the exact words that you'll see on the exam. And that means that if it doesn't see you on the list, there's no exception for you. It's going to drop the packet. It's going to drop the conversation with you in that firewall. So you'll never get into that network. This is the most, I would say, it's probably the most famous access control. But I also kind of think, just coming from where I come from, of desktop and then desktop support into cybersecurity, I also think of ACLs as user groups and having access control to files and things of that nature. So I guess it was just something that I had to get over. But anyway, intrusion detection and prevention systems. So this is where we're talking about. We're either going to talk about detection, and that's going to be more your firewalls. I hate to say firewalls because firewalls can do detection and prevention. So let me go back. Your SIM. So let me put it in the chat. Matter of fact, I'll just put it over here. SIM, uh, Security Information Event Manager. Basically, it's a super appliance that always takes in logs. Remember, those logs can come in at a million a day, if not more. And I might be shortchanging it a little bit, but a SIM logs information about different appliances on the network, and then it only just logs it. So it detects it. It may detect something. It may even warn you of that detection, but it doesn't do anything about it. That's where prevention is going to come in at. So um, a firewall will be a good indicator of a intrusion detection and prevention system, whereas a antivirus software will be just a good indication of a intrusion prevention system. That's the only thing it does. It sees it, it go ahead, it makes the changes right then and there. But detection wise, it's just going to watch the action go down, but it doesn't, unless you tell it to warn you or to give you some type of alert. It's not built to actually correct anything or stop any kind of actions. So some of these things can be network based and host based. Um, Host based means it's directly on your PC, um, whereas network is obvious that it's sitting. You don't get under its umbrella until you are authenticated with the network. And so I think that's important to know that um, while it's on the network, if you're off the network, but that computer that you are on came from that network, if you're not, you know, connected Wi-Fi wise, then you're not under the umbrella of the network base IDS or IPS. All right. So the way these IDSs and IPSs, how do they actually know if something's happening? And you have three different ways. You have signature based, anomaly based, and then behavioral. Signature based is going to be when you think about a signature, a real life signature is it's someone's natural movement when it comes to signing their name, and so it's always based on that person. So when it comes to a signature based detection, every virus is written with a particular um, set of code. And so that code doesn't change. In order for it to be a particular virus, in order for it to be a Trojan, it needs to be written in a particular order, right? That's signature based. So when it comes to your antivirus software needs to download what we call signatures every day in order to know what's new out here in the wild. And those signature, that's how they understand that, hey, a virus has came into the network, because they can see that virus pattern and then compare it to the database that they have, or the signatures, and then they can quarantine the virus by doing that comparison. Anomaly is what it says. It's something that it never really seen before, and it doesn't match up with these signatures. So the signatures could be, let's just, for easy terms here, could be just 100 signatures, and then you have something that's just wildly different. It could go ahead and quarantine that, or have some type of action upon it, or in the case of IDS, it's just going to alert, but in IPS it could quarantine, just because it doesn't know anything about it, right? Something stands out. Behavioral detection is something based off of anomaly base, and so what needs to happen is that we need to put an agent onto our network, and it needs to kind of gather information over time. And as it's gathering information, it learns what is normal, and then whenever something goes awry, then it's saying, okay, this is an anomaly, this is not normal, I'm going to trigger now. That's behavioral based, because it's, if even if things are wild at, let's say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but then everything calms down around 9 o'clock in the morning, it's all based off the patterns that these um IDSs and IPSs can get and learn. But then when something goes off at, let's say, noon on a holiday, it sets off all alerts because it's not used to that. And that's why, really, in the real world, you don't really see too many of anomalies and behavior based, just because we change. I think personally we change too often when it comes to antivirus. We You can be a vendor and maybe be in there for maybe 2 to 3 years, and if they don't want that contract after that, they'll go on to the next one. And so to have a real behavioral baseline, it takes a while. It takes a while, and I don't think that we are allowing companies to stay into our network that long. All right, last slide. We got web filtering. So when it comes to the network, not only do you have your antiviruses, your firewalls, um, default configurations, people are actually doing a lot of their work via the web, and so having some type of web filtering there keeps a good security blanket over what can come in that way. So and I hate to keep picking on you, Ryan, but just because it was a good question, it's like that's another way that I can get from my computer to your computer is via the web. And just like how I said, where I can try to give you something through Zoom in order to connect us. That's the same thing we want to try to have when applying web filters in our place of business. We want to make sure that they can go to the certain websites and not download anything. Maybe stay away from social media sites that they don't need to be on. Um, of course, stay away from any category that we don't want at that point in time. But at the same time, you need to put in exceptions for those who need to go to those sites. And everybody has a case. I remember putting in a, a web filtering rule with Zscaler saying that you couldn't go to any social media sites, but then the marketing team says that no, we live on social media, marketing the business all the time. We need access to that, so we have to put in an exception for them, but which in turn turned out being an exception for everyone because we couldn't really at that time we couldn't really focus in on one particular group. But you just want to make sure that when people are reaching out via the web, that they're not bringing anything into the network from the web into your internal network. All right. Any questions?
Questions?
Not at the
Okay.
moment.
It was kind of these only have 14 slides, so it was kind of short. Let's take a short break. Be back at the top of the hour, and then we'll go ahead and finish up with the hands-on, and I'll let y'all guys get out of here. Can you do me a favor before you go? Please put your name in the chat so I can do the roll.
We're not done.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah, cool.
All right. So this is my Exidium platform. Exidium is, I had got it originally for a EDR system, but it turned out to be more than that, and I'm pretty happy with the product because it gives people a good understanding of what we look at on a day-to-day basis. So this type of this type of system could be any product that you look at when you go and get your first cybersecurity job, um, and they may keep you in the security section of it as far as like antivirus, but this particular platform does a whole lot more. Now I shown it before about assets control or assets management, just to be able to see what's going on here. But you can also dive deeper into these particular products to see things such as your network as a whole. So it's bothering me. Um, if we run um, kind of like a detection on this agent that I have on my machine. And whenever I say an agent, my agent normally will live down here in this little toolbar here. This is how it's communicating back to this dashboard, this appliance. It's taking things that we've seen on that task manager that I showed you, things that it sees here, that agent is taken and then communicating back to this platform and letting me see it in more of a cleaner version. So as y'all can see, while it didn't have anything, it started to do a refresh and started to pick up some information for me. And this is a good way to look at if something's out of that configuration that we started to talk about in the beginning of class, where maybe they're on a different IP address that we didn't want them to be on. Maybe we can look into it or see exactly what's going on there. Maybe we call them up and we say, hey, we found this to be a little bit concerning. Where are you located at right now? When it comes to the ACL list, this type of tool is good to see the applications on it, software inventory. And I think I showed you guys this, but just to show it again, this is what I mean, kind of at a high level of an assets control list. So if we had everything, if we had a meeting with all the IT department, we would say, hey, okay, we're letting people have uh, Microsoft Edge on their computers. Okay, what version do they have? Well, they can't have no less version than what we have here, which is the standard. And we just go through these different types of talks in order to set a configuration baseline of what we want. And if we don't allow something or we don't want that to be allowed, we can always highlight it and then uninstall it. And this can not just be for this one computer, it could be across the board, um, and take it all at one time. Normally, if we were to do something like that, we would need to go through what we call a change request and let people know, hey, we're going to remove all Chrome browsers tonight. Um, Make sure that if you have anything that you need to save it, because we're going to remove it. It's not allowed. It's on our policies. You run through the particulars and then you set it up for a uninstall that night. And what happens is that um, the agent that I showed earlier will, on behalf of that agent, has administrative rights. And so on the behalf of this platform, it uninstall whatever software you told it to do. And it doesn't typically need to have any type of authentication that happens with that. Normally, when you're uninstalling an application, it asks you for a username and password because it needs to make sure that you have that level of access before it just makes a critical change like that. But that's the wonderful thing about putting these agents on, is that you kind of alleviate that, or you kind of give pseudo access to that agent that lives on your computer. So that's why, you know, you don't want to just put any agent on your computer. And a lot of people don't want a lot of agents on their computers. They say that it makes it run slow, but some of them they have to live with. And just because it doesn't show up in this tray doesn't necessarily mean it's not on your computer. But that's the ACL list. We also have configuration plan templates here. So check this out. This is pretty cool, where I can set up how I want my configuration to look of a OS, a Microsoft Windows 10 or 11, and I can set my OS up here and then deploy it out to everyone that's connected to my network. And I don't have to necessarily go and touch every computer, but I can at least go through and see exactly um, what I want to actually, manipulate when it comes to these profiles. Now I can set alerts up for anybody that's deviating from that configuration list. Maybe that's something that I want to be on my radar. Maybe I think that, hey, no one should be able to deviate from this list. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in an alert for it. So if something does happen, I can be alerted and I can take action then. Now, this is the antivirus part of it. Normally, like I said, this is where the signatures will be downloaded and then sent out, dispersed to the agents that are out there in my network. Um, Normally, when a signature is when a virus is detected on a computer by that agent, it quarantines it. Normally, that's what you're going to see on every antivirus, is that uh, they need to run scans on a daily basis, and they probably need to run some type of update on a daily basis too. So a lot of times when you see people start up their computers early in the morning, it might be a little bit slow because they're pulling down those new signatures in the antivirus, and maybe pulling up an update that they had to restart or whatever. So a lot of these things need to happen on a after a reboot. That's why, it's so common for IT professionals to just kind of reiterate, hey, let's go ahead and restart. Did you restart? You know what I'm going to try? I'm going to try restarting it. And sometimes that fixes the issue. A lot of times that fixes the issue when, a computer is just really trying to get through a task, and maybe a hang up is the reboot. So going back to the quarantine side of it, putting things into quarantine is where you can see these viruses here, and then you can be able to delete those actual files from the PC that they were found on. If we had something on our firewall, as far as in an appliance, we could possibly we could see the logs here, but obviously I'm not in an enterprise environment to be able to show you that. So everything firewall wise will be on my host. Now let's get down to vulnerability management. Now, of course, vulnerability management was supposed to be talked about on Tuesday, but I wanted to show you guys this as far as the hands-on part that I didn't include into that video. This is where when you're running a vulnerability scan, you'll see what type of patches that are needed for those vulnerabilities that you face. And in this particular case, I can see what vulnerabilities that everyone has on their computer that's in my environment. And so I can read up on this particular CVE and see exactly if I want to act on it right now or if it's something that I want to wait on. Now, I could see what the problem is, and then I could see the publish date, so I could see how far behind I am on this problem. Um, I can reach out to the vendor to see exactly if there's something else that I need to put into there, and I could see exactly what PCs are affected. Great piece on this software just because it it's now it leaves you open to where you don't have to touch every computer thinking that everybody has this same problem when it's just three of them. So this is why you want those agents out there really kind of communicating on the back end because it could be a little bit cumbersome to stop people doing their job and asking them, "Hey, do you mind if I take a look at the logs, or do you mind if I take a look at your updates to see if you have some updates to run?" Uh, Well, I'll get back to the mobile application in just a second. Let me go back here and then go to patch management and then go over to third-party applications. So, well, I'll stay here for a minute. The patch management part of it, those CVEs that you've seen in vulnerability management, this part right here, these are normally remediated or solved by applying these patches. So it's not, well, I don't want you to think that it's a one for one, right? But 9 times out of 10, if we run these patches, uh, the ones that are needing to be installed like this, right? Um, it's going to solve some of those CVE problems that we see in the vulnerability management piece. Okay. So patch management and vulnerability management will go hand in hand. And when you guys go over that video, you'll get more about what I'm saying on that. I did wanted to bring up the third party applications because we constantly put things into our system and then we don't get the updates from that third party all the time. We have to actually go out there and see if that third party has an update for us to run. And so this part, like I said, is good to have that agent onto your computer. I'm kind of lost there. Okay. Okay. So it's good to have that agent sitting on your computer and then be able to see exactly what third party applications that did not come with Windows and be able to see if we need to run patches on those. So it can keep that kind of communication open with the vendor as well as the host machine. So it's great to have this piece for it. Of course, I don't run anything because I'm just I mean, these are real issues, right? So I don't want y'all to judge me. These are real issues. These are real devices that I know that are my family members, basically. Well, not all of them, but these are important people to me, as far as whose agents the agents are on their PCs. But I needed to kind of like rack up so you guys can understand where I'm coming from. So I'm almost kind of sacrificing them to for learning purposes. But I will run patches on these. I will get to it. So don't judge me. Any questions?
No, sir.
All right. Last thing here. This is the MDM part of it. We didn't talk about MDM today, but we did cover it. And MDM is just a mobile device management. I think we covered it either last week or Monday. But it's basically if if you remember when I said if you leave a computer or a phone on a airplane or something like that, I can remote wipe it. This is where you could do those actions at. I think I already said that before. But anyway, can't hurt to say it twice. That's all I had for tonight. Early night. I can give you some time back. Kristen, if you want to stay after class, just to kind of let me know where you stand at, and then everybody else. Hold on, before you go, I will put out another quiz this weekend, so please be on the lookout for that this weekend. Hopefully, is nothing too crazy going on that y'all could just go and knock that out real quick, and then we'll jump back into things on Monday. Like I said, if you guys got any questions, just give me a shout on my emails or in LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to help. Um, Kristen, if you want to stay after class and chat just a little bit. Oh, she left. She left. Okay. All right. Y'all take it easy. And
You too.
I'll catch
Thank you.
y'all on Monday.
Good night,
Thank you
team.
so much. Have a great night.
Good night,
All right.
guys.
All right.
Oh, I got one question. I got one.
Just to double down on that. And I'll put this in the chat. This is Microsoft's training center. And everything that you want to learn about their products is right here.
Okay.
And the cool thing about it is that the only thing you got to do is log in with your Microsoft account, and then you should be able to take all of this training free. You should. What they charge you on is to take the actual certification. But again, like I said, I don't think you need to have it like a certification piece on your resume. I think if you can put that you have experience in Office 365 as well as Azure, then that stands out to employers a lot better
Okay.
than saying, you have a certification in Microsoft. Now, both of it is still impressive, and having the certification is impressive, but you also spending like I think it's like $100 to $200 per certification. So
Louis.
yeah, but let me put this in the chat for you guys. Now, before I get started, how close are y'all to midterms?
Finals. I have my finals is on the first week of December.
Y'all already passed midterms?
Yes.
Dang. I'm still on that old school schedule then. Okay.
They happened about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago for us.
Yes, 2 or 3 weeks. But we did ours the second week of October.
So do
So
y'all
yeah.
even go to school in December?
I get out of school December 6th, which is
We
that
get
Friday.
we get out. I want to say the 13th of December.
My
Dang.
school just let us get out early. Be like, we don't need y'all here no more.
And y'all don't
Cause
come back until the first of the year?
we don't come back until January 11th.
Dang, I look old out here. So we used to go to school all the way up to about the week right before Christmas, like the 20th or something like that, and then go back on the 3rd. Okay,
When did y'all come back? Well, y'all came back on the 3rd. Oh wow.
yeah,
That's high. That's
to
like
get acclimated
elementary
back in the
school.
dorms and make sure you got everything cool. But I don't know. Okay, all right. I wasn't trying to double up on the finals. So okay, let me ask that question one more time. The finals for you guys, I heard, is the first week of December, and you said the 11th and 13th of December. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is for us, or for A&M students.
Well, it depends. Grad students will take I'll be taking my final that week before, and I'm too. So it really depends on the staff. But those last 2 weeks, because the 13th is graduation.
Like a ceremony graduation.
Yes, the 13th is the actual ceremony of graduation. Finals officially start. I could pull up the calendar. I have it. 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Hey. So while you pulling that up, will y'all? I guess, and I hate to ask the question like this. Will the engagement still be good after the finals? Because I know people will be going home, things of like that nature. Will we still be able to keep our same regimen?
Righteously, yeah, in my opinion. I mean, because we'll be out of school. I know, like, yeah, finals start. I'm sorry to jump. Finals start December 5th. That's what is documented on the website. So it's saying December 5th, and the last day it has is
Okay.
I believe it wouldn't make no difference because
yeah,
it'll be the same because this is a virtual class and it's like ain't nothing just to log in at
yeah.
6 every day because I'm already adjusting my work schedule around it.
Okay.
I agree
So
with my.
yeah.
All right. Then I'll keep chugging along, and I guess we won't have a break until I gotta check, but I think it's that week of Christmas. I think change your name on the iPhone. Sabala?
In regards to, I know every week you post our work, right? And I know our attendance and stuff, which I have no problem with that. If we did not complete our assignment before the next class, I've just been under the weather, so I haven't done anything. Am I still able to do it? I know it says no due date, but I know you typically put grades in prior to the next week. Do I need to email you, or how does that go about?
No, it's more of a participation grade versus
Okay.
a actual grading scale.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I prepare you for the exam
Great.
if
Great.
and
Okay.
when you guys want to take that exam. That's my main focus. And so having those tests, I just want to, see that you're engaged. Plus, it helps me out as an instructor for Pivot to show them that, hey, we are moving towards the goal. But if you can get them done,
Definitely will. Okay. I just wanted you to. I know I've been on track with them, but I do have a blood disorder, so I do like zone out at times, and this weekend was one of them.
got you. Understand. And I was feeling under the weather too, so I didn't get those I didn't get the last ones graded on time, and I just put out a new the exam for the test for last week today. So if we can get that done before the end of this week, that'll be awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so like I said, I'm dealing with this cough. Um, so if I go mute, I'm just trying to clear my throat, and I'm gonna try to push through it. Any questions regarding some of the lessons that we went over? Have you seen anything different? Learned anything in school that you wanted to bring up? Any topics?
I just have one question for you, just so I can kind of remember and backtrack for what we said last time. On the placement, like of the test in order, which ones we take the A plus first, and then we take the security plus, or is it swapped? What's the
The proper answer is A plus first, and then the security plus. The other answer is that, and that's for the pivot side of it. That's how Pivot wants you to do it. But just in case it doesn't go that way, you don't have to have the A plus in order to take the Security plus. But don't, I know you guys are not thinking in that direction, but just in case it gets to that point where only thing you want to do is take the Security plus, then you can just tackle that one if you choose to.
Okay. Can you clarify exactly what? Because the question and your answer kind of throw me off a little bit.
Okay. So for Pivot, they want you to take the A plus exam and pass that first before you go into Core 2, and then take your Security plus exam. And that makes it seems like A plus is a prerequisite of Security plus.
Okay.
But in the real world, they're not like that. So if you miss your opportunity to take the A plus, and I'm not encouraging that, but I know it's different material that you're learning over there versus here. If you miss that opportunity and you still wanted to take the Security plus, you can. And only thing I'm saying is that it's not a prerequisite if you miss that opportunity window.
Okay.
With Pivot.
Well,
I think I'm adding too many words in there.
now you're straight. You're saying it's not a prerequisite. You could take it as you see, but Pivot want us to do a certain way, although that's not like everybody's go to.
Yeah.
When in regards to signing up for the test and moving forward with those, I'm not sure if we talked about that in the orientation, but is that something you will walk us through too, signing up, or we do that on our own time after, or is it like at the end of the course load? I'm sorry, I don't.
To you sound a little bit muffled, but I think you said that you're trying to sign up for the exam.
I'm saying yes, sir. Is that something we will do as a unit? Like, okay, let's sign up around this time, or is it to the discretion of us?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that, and I'm sorry.
No, that's
But
fine.
I know for sure, and I think Dr. Blair will be a better resource on that than me. But I think you will sign up on your own and get the voucher from them. See, okay, so you need a voucher in order to take this exam. This site that I'm showing you right here is where you go and sign up for the exam. Get this out of here. This is CompTIA is the person giving the exam. That's the certification we want, but it's given through a company called Pearson View. This is where they're gonna have those um, venues that you can actually sit down and take the lab test at. So I'm gonna put that in the chat. And what you would do is you'll create a login or an account here, and you will sign up for the exam. And when you sign up for the exam, it's going to ask for a voucher number. You will get that voucher number from Pivot. Pivot will give you that voucher number. You put it into this website. It will then change that balance of 412 to zero balance because they are paid for that. Okay, and so you can do your A plus here, and then once you finish your A plus, you get your now sign up for the Security plus at the same site.
Okay, so two completely separate exams.
Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. They are not back to back log in, but I ain't gonna put y'all through that. Let me try just to see if it works. It's did it work? It worked enough. All right. The A plus is its own exam, and there's two parts to that. You know, core 1 and core 2. But then Security Plus is its own separate exam by itself.
So it's 3.
No, because that's core 2. Okay. Let me see.
Sorry.
No, that ain't. No. Now let's walk through it because I. Who's teaching A plus? Y'all, are y'all taking the A plus course right now?
So
No,
we're
sir.
supposed to be taking like 2 versions of or 3 different tests, right? Because that's what they kind of told us in the orientation, that we would take A plus the first part and the second part, and then take Security plus. Is that
Okay.
still true?
It's not 3. It's one big test over here. So okay, so you see how it says codes, exam codes right here. Exam codes 1101 and 1102 is all in one exam. So they're going to give you 100 questions just to make it easy. 100 questions in this one exam. And if you pass it, you get your A plus. The difference is, give me a second. The difference is, and I should be, let me stop sharing my screen so y'all can see me, is that you have, of course, the book doesn't want to show. You have core 1 and core 2, core 1. Come on, show up. Core 1 and then core 2. And you see these are like thick books if you could see them. I'm sorry. Jesus, I don't want to come off my little blinder thing, but anyway. The books are thick. And what I mean by that is that, it's a good bit of information on 1101 and 2. And so that's why it's broken up into 2 parts. One is supposed to teach you about the hardware about A plus, the hardware of a computer, memory, storage, motherboards, fans, things of that nature. And then the second core is going to teach you how to troubleshoot those components. That's secure. That's A plus, and then Security plus is just what we've been talking about since we've been doing our class. And I got that book too, but there's no need for me to show you that book.
Got you. So just to make sure I'm not, a little lost. Basically, you're saying that we will cover. I mean, not you're saying. Will we cover those still both with you though? I know we're already doing the first one, like you said. We've been doing it the whole time. The course 1 and course 2, we will still do that with you though, correct?
I no, ma'am. I hold on. Let me stop this recording.
Okay, I got it.
Let me adjust. All right, that was I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna have to get her on the phone for that.
We
Okay.
appreciate you.
No problem, because I don't want all this to kind of go by the wayside. Like I would hate for y'all to learn all this stuff with the Security Plus and then kind of forget it trying to learn the A plus. And it's kind of for you to learn the Security Plus without knowing the A plus basic foundations. I don't like that, but we'll get through it.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Lesson 10, endpoint security. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about agents that are sitting on our computers, not necessarily on the network. They may communicate to the network, but they're everywhere we go as far as our mobile devices are concerned, laptops and endpoints on your desktop as well. But desktops are not normally moving from spot to spot. So the first thing this chapter talks about is endpoint hardening. And when you see the word hardening, that means it's taking a configuration and putting the most security that you can on it. So we may disable some some features. We may enable some features, but what it's doing is it's changing it from the default and being able to create more security by locking it down, quote unquote, by hardening. So we could do this to workstations and we could do this to servers. In your workstations, we may turn on antivirus, firewalls. Um, we may put ACLs on who can install information, who can uninstall. And so all of those things helps when it comes to the hardening process of a workstation. Servers, you're following the same process, but it's even more locked down on who gets access to a server. More than likely, it's going to be someone of admin privileges, which is only a small group. It should be your IT group. And owners of that system. But even if they own it, let's say a director, um, a director of a department may not have access to a server in some cases, just because they don't need to be on there. And it's also, if their account gets compromised, you don't have to worry about their account showing up on a server that's already hardened. Other ways we can also protect our endpoints or protect our desktops and laptops is that through segmentation. We already talked about that through networking. Uh, Also, in that segmentation, we have isolation. This is kind of where those VLANs come into place, having those separations and IP addresses. We can put those things in isolation to where they don't have any communications to anything else. Back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I'm talking maybe 10 years ago, whenever you do have a computer that maybe has a virus on it. Okay, I'm gonna get to that. I'll jump right back to it. Whenever you get a computer that has an endpoint, a virus on it, then in order to isolate it, we would just unplug it from the network, and then we would have to actually put hands on it. But in today's world, we can just manipulate the the uh, the VLAN on it and be able to isolate that. Now, what is exactly an endpoint is? An endpoint could be a workstation, like your computer that you're sitting on. Your phone could be an endpoint. Um, but it also could be software wise. So I don't know if you can see down here, but you see all of these endpoint applications that I have here. These are applications that talk to some type of big server, and we refer to them as endpoints. But more than likely, you're going to be talking about one of the two. So if someone says, "Hey, I need you to go and uninstall an endpoint on their computer," you're probably uninstalling some type of software, right? Maybe like a antivirus. I'm gonna uninstall that, or a Team Viewer, something that someone uses it for remote access. That's an endpoint. But an endpoint could also be the whole computer that comes from the store. And we refer to it as from our server to the endpoint is giving a particular service. Okay. So, um, like I said, antivirus and other software could be endpoints. Um, but that could also be a format for protection as well. Disencryption, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, where we're talking about applying encryption on the whole hard drive. So just in case you lose that endpoint, it's encrypted. Someone needs to know the password in order to get into it. Patch management is also, we talked about that also when it comes to applying those updates. Remember that updates are vulnerabilities waiting to be exploited. And if we haven't patched them, then they stand a chance of being compromised at any time whenever they find a threat, right? That actually can exploit that vulnerability. Now, advanced endpoint protection, this is where EDRs come into place. Now, I showed you guys how my EDR looks. This is just a very advanced way of looking at antivirus or some type of software that can read more data than the actual your regular antivirus. So it's more advanced. It can probably isolate and take things off of the network if need be. Um, Heads and hips. So you'll see on the test, it'll probably say heads or hips. Um, Now these are two different things, but so don't take the slash as a and, take it as a or. So host-based intrusion detection system is going to be his. Um, that's where it's going to live on the computer. It's going to be on the host, but it's designed. That system is designed to detect any actions that's going down on the computer. But a prevention system is going to actually go into action and stop any kind of action that's going down on that computer. So detection is just going to look. So this is where your SIM devices come in, your log references, your firewall could be that, but your firewall will play more into the prevention side because remember what a firewall does is that whenever it sees something coming in and it's not on its list, it drops it. It takes an action and actually prevents a action from actually taking place. Now, in the configuration point, you could have an allow and a block list when it comes to applications, and I kind of hinted at it a little bit. Um, but these are great ways that you can, one, if you look at it from a standpoint of a mobile device, you can only have the applications that you want on a mobile device on your phones. So if you only wanted Microsoft Office 365, that's the only thing we can allow. But if we didn't want them to have ESPN.com app or um, Instagram, then we could put that on our block list. Now we can have a full list of block lists and only allow and we can only configure our systems to allow a maybe 5 applications. That way, if we see anyone deviate from that 5 allow list and maybe have 6 or 7, we can always roll them back to the 5, right? So it's easier to keep that allow list versus putting everybody on a block. Because at some point in time, you are going to run against applications that you don't really know about, and you're going to have to allow them onto your allow list. But it's easier to do that than the versus to just let everybody have their way and have everything, and then try to block later down the road. That's being reactive, and that's never really good to be reactive. You always want to be proactive. So hardening techniques. Protecting physical ports. So, real quick, if you ever thought about a business setting or a school setting, now we have ports just kind of everywhere where you can actually, when I'm talking about a port, is where you take a Ethernet cable and you're able to plug into the network wherever you go. Um, some places do have covers for those type of things, and you have to take the plate off in order to get onto that network. Take the little piece out. But not every place has that. So a lot of times you'll see open ports everywhere, especially in a hospital setting where you can see it down the hallways. Um, on the switch of those ports, you want to be able to disable those ports and only make requests to the network admin to turn those ports on if you need to if you need to have connection at that port. That's going to give you better security when it comes to not just anybody plugging into the network. um, Back when I first learned how to uh, work on computers, we used to keep all of the ports hot, what we call hot, and that means enabled. And we just would plug in anywhere and be able to get onto the internet. But you could see the problem in that if you're just walking in as a visitor and sitting down and just plug it into the network, and now you can have access to the shared drives and things of that nature. So disabling those ports is major. You can also have VPNs, um, mail encryption. Um, we don't really talk about mail encryption because it's pretty much automatic when you're operating over HTTPS, over the internet. So it's kind of a known gimme. But if you ever run into a case where they're not using encryption on emails, please have them do so. Um, Removing unnecessary software. So this is a big one, and I'll go ahead and share my control panel. And let's go to, if you ever go to control panel and you go to uninstall programs, it'll show you everything that you got here on your laptop or desktop. And this is where you can uninstall unwanted software. Excuse me. Now, a lot of times, if your computer is running slow or you got a ton of stuff on your computer and you're running out of software room, you can always kind of come here and uninstall some things to free up some space. I always would, if I know I didn't really install anything after a particular date, I would always have this descending order, the install date, and then I will just go through and uninstall anything that I know I'm not really using. So like this Trillex endpoint system, I know I'm not using that, and I can uninstall it. I'm not going to go through that because the last time I tried to do something like that, I end up getting disconnected. But that's uninstalling unnecessary software. And you should go through, and only if you're sure that you don't need it, uninstall it. So the reason why I put emphasis on that is that the C++ here, I think I may need that for Wireshark. I'm not sure, but I don't want to uninstall it because I'm not too sure about it. Now I could do a Google and see why do I have it on here, but um, the C++ might be for something else that I use, maybe some type of visual software that I use, but I'm not too sure. But for the purposes of our class today, you always kind of want to go through and actually uninstall things that you don't really need. And the reason why is that some of these things, such as Windows Essentials 2012, could be out of date, and they're not even supported by the manufacturer anymore, such as this software. So if if it has a vulnerability, essentially it makes my computer have that vulnerability because I have that software installed. So to alleviate that, we want to go ahead and uninstall that. So I don't know if you guys remember when I talked about specialized devices or SCADA devices. SCADA devices are those type of industrial devices that run maybe like your power plants, the water treatment plants, things of that nature. Some of those old uh, devices do not have updates that are ran on them on a normal basis, right? And when I mean a normal basis, I'm talking maybe they haven't been updated in years. And so how do you actually harden those things? It's going to be more based off of your network versus what you can actually do to the device. So if that PC hasn't been updated in years and there's no way of taking it off the network because it controls the water treatment plant, then we want to make sure that no one can get to it via the internet. And so we'll put it in isolation, make sure that it's running, make sure we have someone checks on it, make sure they restart it as needed. But as far as making it available on the internet, we want to go ahead and cut that out just because it leaves a too big of a vulnerability on the network. And we really kind of just stuck in those hard places with those because there's really no upgrades for them. And 9 times out of 10, the company that had um, that piece of software might be out of business, or they might not even um, support that software anymore. So let's jump into mobile device hardening.
I'm
So as
sorry.
we
Can you
all
go?
know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Can you go back? Not that slide. The two slides. Okay. Let me get this. I'm writing something down real quick.
Okay.
One more thing. Can you go to the next one for me? And that's it. Okay, we're good. Thank you.
No problem. So as I said before, mobile devices are prone to being lost or stolen in some type of capacity. If you work in a spot where they give you a phone or a tablet, while you won't get in trouble for losing it, they understand that um, it's a good chance that if you are traveling, you might end up losing it. And so you want to have those things managed by a mobile device management system, MDM, and we want to make sure that they have the wiping feature set on them. We also can set them up with hardening processes when it comes to if they're going to use a password or a passphrase or a PIN number. Are we going to make them do biometrics? All of these things can be done in the MDM. Now you have, and this is going to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
Okay.
I didn't say anything.
Okay. You have deployment models. So for sure, I know you will see bring your own device. And what this means is that some companies will allow you to take your personal phone and make it into a company's phone. And the only thing that really means is that the applications that they use for the business, you can use on your personal phone. Um, then you have places that give you a business phone. So I don't know if you guys can see that. This is my business phone. This is my personal phone. Personal phone, not away. Anyway, so the business phone is only authorized for business applications. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. This is like off topic, but question like as far as for taxes. So if you use your phone for business, like as far as your business, can you write that off?
Yeah.
I mean, not like not your own business, but like for the company you work for
Oh, for the
business.
company, I wouldn't. um,
Because you're taking up like a half
okay.
of your time is like
Let's
half of your usage of your device is like, yeah.
okay, let's talk about it. Okay, bring your own device. You're in that realm, right?
Mhm.
You brung your iPhone, and I say to you, you could put the company's email on your phone. Here's the problem with that, and we'll get back to you using your. I've seen it to where they will pay you more on your salary to give you more for your phone bill, right? Or they will pay your phone bill straight out.
Oh, okay.
But that's not every company. And here's the kicker: is that when you put business or a business application on your phone, then you have the problem of whose information is whose. Okay, you are taking business information and you're mixing it with personal use. So if you get hacked from a personal site that you went to on your phone and it went into the email that you have on your personal phone, but it's a business email, the lines have become blurred. You get what I'm saying?
I understand.
And so to go back to the taxes, if I'm a business, I'm probably going to pay you for your phone bill, but I wouldn't allow you to write taxes off on it because I'm paying you already up front. Now, if they don't pay you or give you any compensation for that, I would seek advice from a CPA before doing that. Because like I said, is it really your phone if you're taking business phone calls and you have business information on your personal phone? It's technically a business phone.
Right.
And so I don't know. I would say the business could write your phone off on their taxes, but you for the business, I'm not professionally trained to tell you the right answer on that.
Okay.
Um, but good question. I'm just not sure about the legit answer on that. I've seen places where, so like I just showed you guys, I have two phones, so I could turn. I've seen people turn their personal phone off and then use all their personal stuff on the business phone while they're working at that company. But again, like I say, if you're doing anything that you doing on your personal phone, that can potentially be seen by this mobile device management system here. And so, and also, if they wanted to wipe your phone, they could wipe it as easy as hitting a button or two. So all the information that you do have could be gone.
That's also bad.
Yeah, which is mandated though. I'm not too sure, but see, and in the same time, for the bring your own device scenario, I would probably have you sign a policy saying that, hey, if you're going to use your personal phone for business wise, I need to be able to have it in my MDM and wipe it whenever you do go on trips. Because if you lose your phone, you just didn't lose your personal information, you lost the business information. So it gets a little bit sticky. Um, you definitely, if when you guys get the job, ask for that second phone. Get it, please. I mean, granted, that means that they can contact you at any given time because that's what you're technically always on call with the cell phone, a second cell phone. But in this, I ain't gonna say that. It's not gonna be often. At least I don't think. Knock on wood. Um, so you have company owned, corporate owned, and business only, right? That's that second phone I showed you. Um, corporate owned and personally enabled. That's going to be more in the sense of they gave you the money to actually buy the actual phone and you use it for business purposes. And then choose your own device is really just kind of, I ain't gonna say cheesy, but it's a little cheesy where they have an option between Android and iPhone, and you choose which one you want. Now, I already said that you should have full device encryption on it. And that what that really means is that once you put a password or a pin on it, it encrypts that hard drive so no one can get into that phone. I did have this highlighted that the iPhones have data protection once you automatically create that password in the startup process. I don't think Android has that. I think you could set Android up to be open all the way through. But now since iOS is having so much integration with iCloud, it's really kind of hard to bring up one of their products without it wanting to sync with your iCloud and then put everything into like an ecosystem.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so when it comes to like with the iOS and data protection, what necessarily is jailbreak? Is that getting rid of that encryption in order to, customize your phone or like what, how do those like jailbreak?
So jailbreaking is being able to get down what they call to the kernel of a hard drive on a phone or in a Linux system. And if you can get down to that kernel, that means that you have total control of the actual device. And so yeah,